height in the NBA is allegedly supposed to go hand in hand, and for a time there was no greater player than the one who was tall, had muscle, and was very skilled. And indeed, if you look at the pantheon of NBA legends, you'll find many of them were tall. But were they among the tallest of the tall to play the game? That answer might surprise you. So join us as we reveal to you the top 9 insanely tall NBA players of all time.
Just a reminder about our new giveaway. We're giving away the new iPad Pro or the new iMac Pro. The choice is yours. All you have to do is watch the full video, leave a like, comment the keyword hidden in the video, and make sure you're subscribed. It's that simple.
Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 9. Boban Marjanovic, 7 feet 4 inches. Here's a twist for you to start. We're going to talk about a guy who is on a team right now in the NBA and whose team made a big splash. This is Boban Marjanovic. Despite his size, Boban Marjanovic isn't what you might call the best around, which has led to him being a bench player and a role player for the majority of his time in the league. Yet, ironically, when he was playing in Europe before coming to the NBA, he was a much more dominant force on the court. The reason for that is simple. The NBA has rules against just staying in the paint for an extended period of time, and thus Boban has to go after players to try and block them, which makes him not the best defender ever. However, when it comes to the player efficiency rating, that's another story entirely. It's a stat that looks at positive and negative parts of players' time on the court and then goes and rates them based on the minutes played to see how efficient they are. Trust us, it means more than you might think, especially in this case. Because Boban is apparently one of the most efficient players in the history of the NBA. In fact, in 2018, he was ranked as the #1 most efficient player of all time because of what he would do in the limited time he would have on the court. Which is honestly something that makes him so good a player in the eyes of his teams he's been on. Because that means if you put him on the court, even in a limited capacity, he's going to make an impact in his own way. But going beyond that skill on the court, Boban is beloved in the NBA because of his childlike personality. And his 7'4" frame is honestly something that makes him a sight to behold. Oh, and if you didn't know, he's in John Wick 3. He's the big guy in the library who got killed via a book. So yeah, even John Wick appreciates Boban Marjanovic. Number 8. Sim Bhullar, 7 feet 5 inches. As noted earlier, there was a belief for many decades in the NBA that you had to be well over 6 feet and preferably over 7 feet to make it big in the league. But as history has shown us via multiple players, that's honestly not true. Case in point, Sim Bhullar. He was a monster of a man in terms of height, but he had little else to offer the team he was on. Sim was actually the first player of Indian descent to make it to the NBA, which, as noted later, was part of the reason he was brought into the NBA. He played for New Mexico State and went undrafted after declaring for the NBA. However, the owners of the Kings was also of Indian descent and brought him on the franchise via their summer league program, which eventually allowed him to earn a 10-day contract for the Kings. Here's the thing though, despite getting that contract, they barely used him at all. In fact, he only played 3 games for a total of 3 minutes. So, despite his size, he apparently brought nothing for the Kings to use or want to use. So yeah, size isn't everything, despite what people tell you. You need skill to go with that height, else you're just a giant obstacle that's very easy to get around. Number 7. Pavel Podkolzin, 7 feet 5 inches. This is Pavel Podkolzin, a 7'5" man who ironically also played for the Dallas Mavericks. We're seeing a pattern here. Pavel's career started off in Russia, and then he moved to Italy to play more basketball before declaring for the NBA draft all the way back in 2004. When he came into the NBA draft, the Utah Jazz took him with the 21st pick, but he was then traded that night to the Mavericks. He played only a handful of games for about 20 minutes total and 4 points. So, like Sim Bhullar, his impact was less than desirable. Despite the fact that the NBA didn't work out for him, he did go back to his roots and play ball overseas, where he's actually quite a draw. Again, showing that different rule sets can greatly benefit certain kinds of players. Number 6. Chuck Nevitt, 7 feet 5 inches. At this point, you might be thinking, are a majority of these big men busts? The answer to that would be not always. For proof of this, we show you Chuck Nevitt. Chuck played 9 years in the league, which is honestly harder to do than you might think. Chuck averaged a handful of minutes a season, but he did make impacts where he could, and his height made him a lovable player. Plus, he was on the 1985 Lakers team that won the title, so he is the biggest man to ever win a ring, currently. Chuck had a somewhat memorable NBA career, which many of these big men on the list wish they could say. Number 5, Shawn Bradley, 7 feet 6 inches. Shawn Bradley was a big man who played most of his career for, yep, you guessed it, the Mavericks. Sure, he played for other teams in the NBA, but his best years were for the Mavericks for a very basic reason. The guy knew how to block a ball, and do it repeatedly. He averaged over 2 blocks a game for a whole season. That honestly takes a lot of skill. Yet arguably, his biggest contribution to basketball was that he was one of the 5 players to be featured in Space Jam with Michael Jordan. Oh, it's real. Remember the dumb blue alien who got really big? That's because he stole Shawn Bradley's talent. So thus, Bradley was part of one of the greatest movies ever made. Yeah, we said it. Number 4, Yao Ming, 7 feet 6 inches. Yao Ming isn't just tall. He's a guy who made a big impact on the NBA. Not only was he born in China, he was in the 2008 Beijing Olympics as one of the major celebrities of the home country. But in the NBA, he was arguably the greatest super tall man in the history of the league. Certainly on the list. He wasn't just good on the court, he was great on the court. And if it wasn't for injuries, he would have had a much longer career with the Rockets. Though he did become an ambassador to the NBA after retiring. Number 3, Slavko Varnes, 7 feet 6 inches. The Yao Ming effect, if you will, led to many players getting drafted solely on the basis of height, including the New York Knicks drafting Slavko Varnes 1 year after Yao was drafted. They drafted him 39th overall, and then they quickly realized his lack of talent and he didn't play a single minute. Even though he went on to other teams, he played 1 game for 3 minutes. He did go back overseas though, and played a lot of time there. Number 2, Taco Fall, 7 feet 6 inches. Taco Fall is one of the most fan-beloved players in the NBA right now, which is ironic because he wasn't drafted, and he earned his spot on the Boston Celtics playing via in the Summer League. If you're wondering if that love was just because he's tall, it wasn't. He does have skills, which he proved at UCF, and the Celtics are always in need of a good bench player. Which is good, because they're in the Eastern Conference Finals right now, and they'll need him. How good he'll be over time? Hard to say, but he deserves your respect. Number 1, Manute Bol, 7 feet 7 inches. Technically speaking, Manute Bol is not the tallest player in NBA history. He loses that by half an inch to a former teammate no less. But in many people's minds, Manute Bol deserves the top spot for multiple reasons. He was a guy that wowed the NBA and the world as a whole because of his length and frame. Though there are many stories about him being older than he was stated to be. In regards to skills, Manute Bol is easily one of the greatest shot blockers to ever play the game, even ending his 10-year career with more blocks than points. But he also had compassion from where he came from, as during and after his time in the league, he used his fame to raise money for his home of South Sudan. And he was always very vocal about trying to make his country better. His son is actually in the league right now, and we'll have to see if he can live up to his legacy of greatness, if not great height. So, what did you think? What did you think of these insanely tall players of the NBA, both past and present? Can you believe the heights of some of these players? Are you shocked to learn that many of them didn't make it too far in the league? Who is your favorite big man in the NBA history? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.